What's going on, my dudes? Chensleo11 here, and welcome back to another episode in the A to Z series, where we are going through every single champion in League of Legends and giving you a basic or beginner's guide to each of them. In today's episode, we're going to be showing you how to play Lee Sin jungle for beginners. Season 12 Lee Sin guide. So I hope you enjoy. We're going to be going through the runes, the build, and most importantly, all the abilities and some just general tips for newer players and newer players to Lee Sin. Now, I will say this at the top of this video. Lee Sin is an extremely high skill cap champion, okay? So that means he's hard to play. So if you're extremely new to the game, I think Lee Sin is very fun to play, and it feels good when what you're trying to do in your brain works because your hands can relay that message quickly, but it is hard to pull off. And if you're new, maybe try Vi, who we're up against in this game, or Warwick or something like that. One of the more simpler jungles. But if you're here and you're sticking to Lee Sin, the Blind Monk, good luck to you. It's quite a lot of fun. This game was a lot of fun in general, so this is a pre-recorded game I recorded earlier. So I hope you enjoy the game. The game isn't always that important, but it's a nice background as we go through everything I want to show. Also, we're going to be going through the first clear and some tips, also starting items, but we'll get through that in a moment. But if you do enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button because we are going through every single champion, as I mentioned earlier. So you want to start W and you want to start red buff. It doesn't matter what side of the map. I always recommend starting red. You can see here we can actually do it without a leash. So the Jace goes back top. And he ends up getting early pressure from that. So although this puts me slightly behind, or this is a little bit tricky for me, it's actually beneficial for the team, and you'll see why as Jace Jace snowballs this game. So you start your W. We're going to go through all the abilities in a lot more detail, but just a quick summary of what the W does, and then we'll go through as we unlock the abilities. The W gives you a shield. You can cast it on yourself, and obviously you take no damage from the minions you're attacking because they're hitting your shield. The Q marks the target, sends off a sonic wave, then you can recast it to teleport towards them and deal damage. The recast of your W gives you 4% lifesteal and spell vamp. So again, super helpful in the jungle. You want to be doing 2 auto attacks between each cast of your abilities because of your passive, which we'll go through in a moment. But essentially, it gives you more attack speed and it gives you energy back. So you'll notice Lee Sin has a yellow bar under his health. There is no mana on Lee Sin. He just has an energy bar you need to keep on top of. And to keep it topped up, you want to be making sure you're auto-attacking after you use an ability at least twice. That'll regenerate all your energy back. So you can see the clear. The clear is red, blue, Gromp, and then you want to go for a gank. Now you can see here, if you look at the minimap, Syndra's pushed up against the Akali and my bot lane's pushed up. So for me, this is a really awkward situation. There's no gank opportunities. So I'm kind of just walking around waiting for the Scuttle Crab to spawn. Which is sometimes what happens when you play Lee Sin. If there is a good gank opportunity, you can go for it. So like if we were on the top side, we could have gone for the gank top because Jace seems to be pushed in. Instead, we're going to smite first to break the shield of the Scuttle Crab and then take it with our Q and then E. The E is an AoE splash damage, and then if you recast it, slows nearby enemies. Again, we'll go through all the abilities in much more detail later on in the video. That's a nice cue for myself. So you can see here, we're doing the reverse clear. So if you get caught where there's no ganking opportunities, I could go counter gank mid right now, but Syndra's okay. Then you start doing the reverse clear, which is where you go wolves, chickens, and then Krugs if you got time, or have a look at the other, contest the other Scuttle Crab. Since I saw Vi came from the other side of the map, it's most likely she went and took that Scuttle Crab, but that's okay. So this is what's called the reverse clear, where there's no gank opportunity after you do your 3 camp clear to get level 3. Lee Sin is a very strong early game jungler. So you want to be make your presence known. You want to be, pushing your advantage as soon as you can, getting around the map and getting objectives. So we're going to just check the Scuttle Crab. Sometimes, especially if you're playing against newer players, newer junglers, that Scuttle Crab will still be up, or you can contest it if you're quick enough. But we're going to have a look at this gank here against the Akali. We're going to walk in so we can hit our Q. Fortunately, we hit it, but it's not worth going in. We just scare her a bit, relieve some pressure off mid. And then we're going to go back and see if we can get the Krugs. Now, the first back, normally what I'd like to do is get enough for your Iron Spike Whip. We'll go through the build in a moment. And a Control Ward. Now, Control Wards, especially on Lee Sin, are very, very important because of your W. You can actually dash to wards, teammates, and friendly minions. You can't dash to plants or towers, but you can also cast on yourself as well. That'll help you clear the jungle, as I mentioned earlier. But that W is super important. So you always want to be having wards for the ward hop, which is what it's called. So you can see here we're about at nearly 1100 gold. So we're gonna go back and get the tail, the iron whip, which is a nice little power spike for Lee Sin. It helps you clear on the AoE camps as well because it does AoE damage on the active. So I've been rambling on, and I haven't even got through what I want to get through, which is the runes and the build, right? We normally do that and the skill order at the beginning of the video. But junglers are very different because a lot of the time when you play a jungler, the first few minutes of the game are actually very important. You want to get through your clear properly, get some nice early ganks. Now, it's especially true on Lee Sin, being an early game champion. So we notice bot lane's pushed up, so we're going to have a look. But you can see that my bot lane die, so I'm just like, I'm probably going to leave because there's no point going in for a gank here. And then we noticed Vi was on the dragon, which is slightly unfortunate. So you can see the early game for this game didn't work out too well, and we ended up getting a flash with a ward hop. So that was the ward, then W, and then I used my Q to try and snag her and follow her because I know she was half elf. We definitely could have 1v1'd her. Would have been a bit sketchy because mid's missing and bot lane had pressure, so they could have rotated and killed us. But we got her flash, which is actually probably a good thing. If we hit it, we might have followed and died. So that was actually good that she flashed. We got her flash and we go back to the jungle to clear. Again, mid's pushed up. We might be looking to go back for another gank bot when the Jhin gets there. But potentially we're going to go full clear back towards top side because it looks like this Jace is winning the lane. And we're going to try and snowball off him. All right. So that's a bit of a basic introduction to Lee Sin. What he does well, the early game, the clearing and that. Just making sure you're using your W. Actually, what I'll mention. When you're clearing the jungle, you want to use an ability, auto attack twice, use the second half of the ability, auto attack twice, and then rotate. So you can go W, auto attack, use your second half of the W that gives you the lifesteal, auto attack E to do the AoE damage, auto attack Q. You don't have to use the second half of your E against the jungle camps because it just slows them, and normally that doesn't really matter. So you can skip that and go to your Q. That's what I normally do anyway, like I did against those chickens. And then, yeah, that's how you efficiently clears Lee Sin. Keeps your energy bars topped up, just in case. If you just spam everything without auto-attacking or doing it in the... if you just spam 3 abilities and just then do 1 auto-attack, you're going to run out of energy. So, again, we're looking to get the Scuttle Crab after this gank. So, we're going to go tell the Jace we're on our way. Fortunately, we don't have our ultimate yet. So we can't flash kick her towards our Jace, which would have been good. We ward hop, so that way we make sure we get nice and close. Then we land our Q, and you can see what we did there is, I remember this was a terrible decision. I was like, oh shit, I've screwed up. And you see here, if that back, when I went back and I got a control ward, which is what I normally like to do is get that control ward, I would have been able to control ward and then W to the control ward and not die there. It would have been much cleaner. And that's why I buy one straight away. I was like, damn, I need that control ward. That's why control wards are very good on Lee Sin for the ward hopping. But that's okay. Again, Jace, we're going to try and snowball the Jace this game. He seems to be good. He seems to be winning the lane, so we're going to keep going there. And then another thing with Lee Sin is to try and prioritize the Rift Heralds because they are fantastic for early game. Because they give you gold, whereas dragons give you stats for later in the game, right? So Lee Sin, we want to get the Rift Heralds. You can get the dragons. I'm not saying don't get the dragons. You want to be getting dragons as well, but prioritize your Scuttle Crab. So we've got a bit of a 1v1 against the Vi in the jungle here. Remember, we have our ultimate now, so we're going to see how this plays out. We're hitting our potions as well, which is fantastic. Make sure you use your potions. And then we kick her, follow, and then we kill her because the second half of your Q is an execute. So that's the combo you want to do. You want to Q, ult them away, and then follow the Q. Because at that point, they're at their lowest point, and then you finish them with the Q. So that's it. That was a nice little combo there. That's how you get the deal with the Vi. Or any champion for that matter. What else I wanted to mention is, I didn't mention when to use your smite on the first clear, which is a bit my bad. I like to use the smite on the Gromp, which is right at the end, right? So you do your red, then your blue, and then you do your Gromp, and then you smite the Gromp, and then you save one of your smites for the Scuttle Crab to clear it really fast. All right, so this time we go in. Now this time we don't have our ultimate, but it's okay. Jace lands a nice, gate Q to absolutely demolish it. Akali is here now, but it's a 3v1. We dash to the Jace to get safe, give himself a shield, and we get another kill, and then we transition into the Rift Herald. So fantastic. All right, guys. Now let's go through the runes that I've taken this game, and I'll put them up on the screen. So for Lee Sin, this Lee Sin build is more of the Bruiser build. You can go an Assassin build, But for beginners, I highly recommend this build simply because it's a bit more forgiving, right? You have a bit more health and armor. But you want to go Conqueror, you want to go Triumph, you want to go Legend Alacrity, you want to go Coup de Grace, which comes in handy later on in the game, you'll see. Magical Footwear, which is fantastic on Lee Sin because it gives you the bonus movement speed. And you should be being proactive in the early game, which means you should be getting the boots early. So you can see here, we're spamming W, we jump to the Syndra. She stuns the Ashe, thankfully, so we're going to end up getting out here. Remember, we also have our control ward to ward hop if we need to get out as well. And I think the Syndra hits another ability as well. So that's the runes, guys. For the 3 runes at the bottom, you want to go Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. That'll help in the jungle. So they're the runes. Highly recommend these runes. Just lock them in, don't change them. If you don't understand why the runes are, like why we choose these runes, just give them a read, it'll make sense. Conqueror, obviously, fantastic on Lee Sin because you'll be doing a lot of auto attacking. You can stack it up, gives you a lot of healing, and then so on. So those runes are the best. You can also take other runes I've seen, but for you guys, beginners, I'd highly recommend taking these runes. So next we're going to quickly go through the skill order. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, you want to take W level 1, you want to go Q level 2, then E level 3. Then you want to max your Q because it's you want to get the cooldown as low as possible, plus it does a lot of damage. Then your W, again for the cooldown, and you also get a lot of lifesteal and spell vamp on the second cast, your W, and then your E last, and then obviously taking a point in your ultimate whenever you can. So now we're going to quickly go over the build. You can see here we're going for another gank on the Akali. Again, just putting a bit of pressure on the laners. My ganks this game weren't fantastic. I got one good gank on the Ashe. Ashe is quite immobile. You need to kind of pick your ganks. Now, this Rift Herald use was kind of meh. You can see this. I kicked the Vi into my Syndra, which was actually a mistake. I thought we were at a burster, but unfortunately not. I'm going to go towards the Vi because I thought maybe Akali had the Syndra had the Akali, but it turns out I definitely should have turned around and helped the Syndra and let the Vi go. But that's okay. Ward hop over. She ends up queuing away, and now we're going to get caught with our pants down. But remember, Lee Sin has a lot of mobility, so we're going to have to try and use this here. We're going to have to use our control ward and W. So there it is there, control ward W, and then we'll probably have to even flash as well. I think we're going to die, actually. I can't remember. Yeah, we die. We kind of were trying to run to the bush there, and W to the bush and get Jace's help, but we just got caught with our pants down, unfortunately. So, not the greatest start, but again, the video isn't... Like, the gameplay is the most important thing. Just a bit of a guide while we go through the champion. Alright, so let's go through the build. Now, you want to start with the Ember Knife, which is the red smite item. Fantastic for 1v1ing. You see, it really helped us against the Vi. Lee Sin doesn't really need the slow. You got one built into your E, so I wouldn't recommend the blue one. Obviously, you want to go refillable. Use your refillable in the jungle when you're clearing, especially on your first clear. It's important to use it. And you can see against the Vi in that 1v1, it helped out a lot. So make sure you're popping those before you get into a fight. And you want to obviously always take the warding trinket because you need it for your ward hops, okay? Early items, as I mentioned, the first back is the Iron Spike Whip plus the Control Ward. Then you want to go Gore Drink as your first item into Plated Steel Caps. You can go Merc Treads if they have a heavy CC / magic resist team. So you have to think about that in your games. Sterix Gauge is fantastic. Then you want to go Guardian Angel. At this point in the game, you want to try and be snowballing, so Guardian Angel will be good. That's why you get Guardian Angel. Obviously, it has armor as well. Fantastic against AD threats. Then you want to go Black Cleaver into Death Stance. And remember, there are also other builds, situational builds. If they have a lot of magic resist, you can go Spirit Visage, or if they have a lot of healing, you can go Thorn Mail. And Chem Tank as well if they have a lot of healing. And if they're not doing like auto attacking. So there are many different options. I'll put them all up on the screen. You can have a look. You can see here we just go in and steal the Scuttle Crab off the Vi, just making sure we're staying ahead of her. And then we're going to go back in for a gank on the Ashe. Again, she's weak. Our Jace is strong, so it's a very good lane to kick ganking and push our lead. So you can see we flash Q, we miss unfortunately, and then I think she ults us. So it's a bit of a shambles, shamble in the end. We missed another Q. So the Qs in this game were absolutely terrible. But we remember we can jump to our Jace as much as we do. Then we miss the Q again. We hit the minion. We knock him back, and I actually knocked up the Ashe as well, which slowed her. So then we back onto the Vi. Jace goes to assassinate the Ashe, which he ends up doing fantastically, and then we end up just getting the kill there, and then there's the Triumph Rock killing in. So the W, the life's still there, and the slight item advantage and using those potions, again, won us that fight. Because I played it wrong, but just the virtue of us having a little bit more stats, we end up winning the fight. So fantastic. Well done the Jace to kill that Ashe as well. So we get the Gromp, making sure to counter jungle whenever you can as well on Lee Sin, because you're strong 1v1, especially with your Smite, with your Gore Drinker, and your Spell Vamp on your W, and your Shield. Fantastic. Alright guys, so that's everything I wanted to get through in terms of the build and whatnot. So now let's go through the abilities in a lot more details, just so you know what's going on. So you know exactly what each ability does. The first ability we're going to go through is the passive. It's called Flurry. So after casting an ability, as I mentioned, Lee Sin's next 2 basic attacks within 3 seconds gain bonus attack speed, and they restore energy. The first hit restores full energy. The second hit restores half of that. Nice little blast cone there. Failed it. Okay, so this is extremely important when you're clearing the jungle. That's essentially what it means, right? So you want to make sure you're weaving in auto attacks. This is true for fighting as well. If you spam all your abilities, you're going to miss out on the attack damage that your passive provides. Because if you spam all 3 abilities at the same time, without doing any auto attacks, you'll do 2 auto attacks and then that's it, right? Whereas if you Q, auto attack, Q, you know, so on, you'll get more attack speed and you'll get more energy conservation as well. So it's very, very important to remember that. So now we got pressure here, so we're going to take the dragon. Again, this game we're snowballing it very, very nicely, so fantastic to see. And Jace is here to help as well. We could have smite. We failed the smite actually, smited a little bit too early, but we end up getting the dragons. Making sure we're getting the dragons and all the Rift Heralds will make sure that the game goes smoothly. It's kind of easy to do when you have a really fed laner like we do in this game. Look at that Q, guys. I don't think I've hit a good Q yet, but don't worry, we hit a couple nice ones. So you can see here she's in a thing. So remember, I don't know if I mentioned, I'll go through it in a moment, but the E reveals enemies. If you E, it reveals all the enemies you hit with the E, but if they are already invisible, it won't reveal them. You can see there we nice little Q. The Jace knocked her back. We followed, got another assist. So we're 5, 2, and 3 at the moment. And we're just chasing the Akali because it looks like the Jace is going to be able to get the Ashe fairly easily. You can see here what we end up doing. So she follows. So we end up using our E, then we follow with the Q. Fantastic. So what I did there is I ulted and then Q'd, because if you ult them in a straight line, it's impossible to miss your Q because you can track them. So that was actually pretty clean. And then the Syndra came to bail us out with my W because you can dash towards them, your allies. So let me take the Gromp, maintaining high pressure on the map. So fantastic start to this game. That was actually a nice play. I remember saying out loud, oh, clean, when I hit that play. So it wasn't the best, but that's kind of standard play when you do on Lee Sin. But it is very satisfying to pull off, which is why I said he's hard to play, but he is fun to play. So next, we're going to go through the Q, which is called Sonic Wave. So basically, Lee Sin fires a blast, the Q ball that you've seen me use heaps of times. Nice kill by the Syndra. In a target direction, dealing physical damage to the first enemy hit. So this means minion, monster, epic monster, or enemy champion, okay? So you have to make sure you're hitting the champion if you want to try and follow them with the other half of your Q. It reveals them as well. So when you hit them with the Q, you can recast the Q, which is called Resonating Strike, okay? So each of Lee Sin's abilities have 2 names, the first half and the second half. So the first half there is called Sonic Wave. When we fly to them with a kick, it's called Resonating Strike. And basically, you follow the Q with a kick, dealing the same damage as you did in the first Q. However, upon arriving, you also do execution damage. So if they're missing 50% of their health, you do 50% bonus damage. It's 1-to-1. So it's an execute. Execute means you deal more damage, essentially, the lower health they are. So that's why I always say you want to Q, ult, then Q, right? Because your ult damage will go off, and then your second half of your Q will do more damage. So that's basically the Q. Again, I'll show examples of all the abilities in the top left of the video, as I always do in these guides. That'll help you visualize it if at that point in the video I wasn't kindly using my Q. So the next ability we're going to go through is the W. It's called, the first half is called Safeguard. So Safeguard, Lee Sin dashes to an ally unit's location. So that is wards, control wards, ally champions. I'm not actually sure about ally pets and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure it is as well, like Annie's Tibbers or something. But you dash there and you give yourself plus the champion you dash to a shield. And the cooldown is halved if you upon arrival if you dash to a champion. If you dash to a ward or something like that, it's not halved. So you can see there I dashed to the Jace to give him a shield, and then we're going to go on to the Akali. So that was nice that we helped him out. And then we're going to keep going. So there's that queue again. So you can see you can just hit your queues, reveals them as well, shows everyone where they are, and then you get that big ring on the map, and you can recast it to dash towards them. Yeah. So back to the W. We're going through the W at this point. So so if you hit an ally champion with your W, the cooldown is halved. You can also self-cast your W. You saw me do that in the jungle. I also do that in 1v1s because it gives you a shield. And then it activates your second half of your W, which is called Iron Will. So when you use your Iron Will, Lee Sin gains lifesteal and spellbound for 4 seconds, okay? And then it, I think I mentioned earlier 4%. It's actually 5%, and then it scales up to 25 later on in the game when you've maxed your W. So that's like level, I think it's like 13 when you get your max W. So that's basically it. So the abilities are quite simple. It's just that you need to be able to weave everything in and know exactly what each ability does. Lee Sin is a very creative champion, right? Because you can do a lot of different things. Right now, I could ward, hop, Q, flash behind the Akali, then ult her back into my team. You know, there's a lot of different things you can do, which is why a lot of people play Lee Sin, because he's fun to play, because he has a lot of variety in his gameplay. He's very, very different. Each game feels very, very different on Lee Sin. He is very hard to play when behind, so I will preface that. As he is an early game champion, if you fall behind, you're screwed. Next, we're going to go through the E. It's called Tempest, or the first half is called Tempest. So Lee Sin smashes the ground beneath him, dealing magical damage and marking the enemies for 4 seconds. And if they are not invisible when struck, revealing them in the same duration. So as I mentioned before, if the Akali is in a shroud, is a good example in this game, and we E, it won't reveal her. I think she'll become a shadow because whenever you hit Akali when she's in a shroud, you get a kind of a reveal. Just telling the team to pull the dragon out there. That way we can get it safely, get the smite. Again, making sure we're getting all the objectives. It helps our team scale. But yeah, so the E does AoE damage. Again, fantastic for clearing the AoE camps like the chickens. Another Q we've missed. Jace on top of the Akali. See there, I used my E, but we missed. We'd see how we hit the Akali with my... that was with my Gore Drinker, and it revealed her slightly. And then both of us shot our AoE abilities out, and the Jace happened to hit her. So fantastic to Jace. Another kill for him. 6, 2, and 5 so far. Lee Sin actually has a lot of utility. So he's fantastic in team comps for his utility late game. The early game damage is very, very strong, and you can help your team snowball and get objectives, which is why he's good in the early game. So the second half of the E is called Cripple. So Lee Sin sends out a wave to nearby enemies marked with the Tempest. So if you hit them with your Tempest with the AoE ability, you reuse your E and you cripple them and you slow them for 4 seconds. So in the jungle, this is quite, the second half, the cripple is not as effective. It's pretty useless, to be honest. But against enemy champions, it's fantastic because you can Q onto them, E, and then cripple them. Or you can walk up to them, cripple them, so then they're slow, then you guarantee the hit on the Q, right? So there's heaps of different things you can do. Each case is a different situation. So you need to think about it when you play Lee Sin. So you can see here, we migrate to the Baron. I'm focusing on the Baron. Looks like my team's splitting up a little bit, but I just definitely want this Baron. So I'm looking at my smite. My smite's at 900. When it goes below 900, I use my smite and steal it. So the Vice smited early, it dropped it to 500, then I smited mine with 900 and we killed it. A little bit risky. That could have gone pretty south, but if we get them to come towards us when we're ahead of them in money, gold and levels, we'll kill them anyway. So even if they got the Baron, it wouldn't have been too bad. So you can see here, I wanted to kick the Akali, the Caitlyn, but the Tahm Kench gobbled her up. So what we ended up doing is flashing behind Tahm Kench, kicking him towards our team, and then the Caitlyn came out, team popped her, and then we killed the Tahm Kench. So fantastic there. So that was the ultimate, which is the last ability we're going to go through, which is called Dragon's Rage. So this ability is quite fun to use, Lee Sin's ultimate. As I said, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. As you can see what I did there, which is called an insect named after a famous pro player. You can basically kick champions into your team, right? There are many different ways to perform what's called the insect with the ultimate. With the ultimate, I'll go through the ultimate, then I'll explain the insect. So the Dragon's Rage, Lee Sin roots the target for the whole time he's casting his ultimate, and then he kicks them, right? And then he does like a roundhouse kick, dealing physical damage, and then knocking him up and back away from you, right? So it's fantastic for repositioning the enemy champions. Now, what is great about it is if the enemy champion collides with any other enemy champions, they are all knocked up. And they take damage based on the initial target you kick's bonus health, right? So if you kick a tank into the rest of their team, they'll take a lot of damage, right? Because the tank usually will build a lot of bonus health. For example, like if you kick a Cho'Gath into like a squishy, you might one-shot the squishy because the Cho'Gath has a lot of bonus health. But that's awesome for team fighting. Obviously, that synergizes with some champions like a Yasuo. If you kick someone into their whole team, the Yasuo can follow up with his ultimate. Fantastic. However, the best thing to do with the ultimate is actually the insec or the repositioning of the enemy champion. Kicking champions into your team, displacing them like I did against the Vi. That was actually a bad time to use it. You can get a syndrome where you try and kick champions into your team every single time you get the opportunity, but sometimes it isn't clever too. In that situation, we almost killed the Syndra when we kicked the Vi into her. But that situation where we flashed behind the time Kench, who was fleeing from us, it actually got us the kill, right? So that was a good time to use it. So there's heaps of different ways to do the insec. The way I did it was the easiest way, was to just flash behind them and then kick them. Or you can actually kick, then flash behind them as well. That is easiest because it's 2 buttons. You flash, then you ult. The harder way to do it is to ward hop. Okay, so to do that, you obviously need to place a ward behind them, jump to the ward, and then kick them. So if you have your ward set up on 4, when I play Lee Sin, I have my control wards on 3. It'd be 3 W kick, right? That's how you insect them into your team. But you have to do this while making sure you're behind them, right? Because if you screw it up, you won't do it. You can also follow with your Q, right? If you Q someone, this is like a combo. This is a fantastic combo. Very, very hard to pull off, but it is fantastic. If you Q someone, see right now, if I took my Q to the time Kench, while I'm traveling towards him, if I ward behind him, then W, and then kick, right? So you can really surprise them, which is the fastest way to insect someone. That takes a lot of practice. There is no good example in this game because I didn't have the balls to pull it off. But it is possible to do, and I highly recommend practicing the practice tool if you want to learn how to do that. It is very tricky to do, but it is very, very effective. If you can land it on a squishy, a high priority target, like in this game, the Caitlyn, or the Akali even, fantastic. Absolutely demolish the team fight because you'll pick their champion that is squishy and does all the damage, and then your team can win the team fight front to back from there. So that's basically it, guys. That's all the combos you can do. There's obviously a lot more combos. Ward hopping, you can see me there. After I killed the dragon, I ward hopped over the wall, so you can ward hop over walls. Keep an eye on your W cooldown because it's your main source of mobility. Obviously, your Q is too, but you can only dash towards enemy targets. So usually, I use it on jungle camps. So you can Q to a jungle camp, then take that if you want to, like if you're fleeing, for example. Unfortunately, our team gets a little bit spread apart here, trying to end the game. And unfortunately, we're going to get one more death at the end of this video. But it doesn't matter. We're going to end up winning the game. So, try to almost get the Ash. Unfortunately, we miss. So nice, actually engaged from the enemy team here. So I'm thinking about going in and boot the Nexus, but there was no good opportunity. So you can see here, all 3 of us get team backs off in the middle, and then me and Jace are kind of caught out, and they just go towards us to kill me and the Jace, which is super unfortunate. The Jace flashed in front of us to block the ultimate, so that's a nice guy, but unfortunately we're still doomed. The Vi tries to flash Q. Unfortunately, we don't have an ultimate, because right now I could just ult her backwards into the Ashe, knocking her back, knocking the Ashe up, slowing him down. At this point here, remember we did buy the Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel didn't do much for us in this game, unfortunately, because we end up dying stupidly, and then we're getting it popped straight away. But it didn't matter, because I guess we pulled them away from the Nexus, causing the minions to end the game, right? So maybe it was worth it. But anyway, guys, that's basically everything. Now, I highly suggest giving him a practice before going into ranked or something like that, even against bots, all right? Because he is hard to play. And if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'm happy to answer them. I had a lot of fun making this video, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button for more guides and some more pre-season content. And remember, I think we got Leona next. Okay, so we got the Leona guide coming next. But remember, at the end of the day, it is nighttime. Take it easy.